Let's begin this newscast with the latest coming in from the U.S. Congress as the Trump impeachment probe has now entered the next stage. The House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has announced that the House Judiciary Committee will be proceeding with drafting articles of impeachment against President Donald Trump. Pelosi's announcement came the day after 3 constitutional experts testified to the House Judiciary Committee. 3 of the 4 witnesses affirmed that Trump's bid to pressure Ukraine to investigate his political rival was indeed an impeachable offense. The House Judiciary Committee heard the 4 witnesses testify over the course of 8 hours. Among formal impeachment charges, the Judiciary Committee will also consider abuse of power, obstruction of justice and contempt of Congress.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty?
The facts are uncontested. The president abused his power for his own personal political benefit at the expense of our national security by withholding military aid and crucial Oval Office meeting in exchange for an announcement of an investigation into his political rival. Yesterday, at the Judiciary Committee, the American people heard testimony from leading American constitutional scholars who illuminated without a doubt that the president's actions are a profound violation of the public trust. The president's actions have seriously violated the Constitution, especially when he says and acts upon the belief. Article 2 says, I can do whatever I want. No, his wrongdoing strikes at the very heart of our Constitution, a separation of powers, 3 co-equal branches, each a check and balance on the other. A republic, if we can keep it, said Benjamin Franklin. Our democracy is what is at stake. The president leaves us no choice but to act because he is trying to corrupt, once again, the election for his own benefit. The president has engaged in abuse of power, undermining our national security and jeopardizing the integrity of our elections.
Right after the announcement, President Trump once again attacked the impeachment process on Twitter. He says, and I quote, "If you are going to impeach me, do it now, fast, so we can have a fair trial in the Senate." He reiterated his claim that his phone calls with Ukraine were perfect and added, "We will win." And so staying with the story earlier, we spoke to Wion correspondent Harry Houghton from Washington, D.C. for more on this news story. Let's listen in to what Harry had to say.
Well, it tells us that I think for the last 3 years, the American public has been incredibly divided on President Trump. And you're right to say that President Trump's approval rating, although it's been fairly low and at some points historically low, broadly speaking, it's been pretty consistent over the past few years. It's remarkable how little that approval rating has fluctuated. Look, I think Democrats are pursuing this because they look at the same polls that the Republicans do, which shows that there is a narrow support in the United States for impeaching President Donald Trump. So Democrats think that they've got the backing of the U.S. public. Now, of course, as we saw in the last U.S. election, Hillary Clinton got more votes than Donald Trump, but didn't end up winning the election and becoming president. So it's not just about the raw percentages. It's about those crucial swing states across America. And I think at the moment, Republicans are looking at those crucial swing states and they think that support for impeachment in those crucial swing states is not very high, and that's why I think Republicans are quite confident about how this process is playing out for them politically. Democrats, too, also think that they can win some of those voters over. They might be able to convince them with more evidence over the next few weeks, perhaps. We seem to be set on a track here for an impeachment of President Donald Trump, but him failing to be removed from office in the U.S. Senate.
Now, the French president is facing arguably one of the biggest crises of his tenure, a nationwide indefinite strike. The French police deployed tear gas on protesters and black blocs as a pensions reform protest in Paris turned rowdy. More than 180,000 union members took to the streets in a nationwide protest across France. The demonstrations taking place in some 30 French cities are part of a massive public sector strike involving railway workers, teachers and emergency room medics, among others. Rail workers, air traffic controllers, teachers and public sector staff have staged walkouts and taken to the streets against proposed changes to the pension system in France. Hundreds of thousands of French workers have come out on the streets through Paris and other cities on the first day of an indefinite national strike. The protesters have disrupted almost all public transports, posing the biggest challenge to President Emmanuel Macron since the Gilets Jaunes demonstrations began a year ago. Now, the rail services have been curtailed across France along with Paris metro and bus networks. According to the state rail group, about 1 in 10 trains were running on suburban and high-speed lines, while international services such as Eurostar have also been affected. Flights are also being hit by industrial action at Air France and by some air traffic controllers. The Eiffel Tower has been closed to the public on the first day of a nationwide strike over pension reforms. The strike has wiped out 90% of high-speed trains, 80% of interregional trains and 10 of Paris's metro lines. The strike in protest at pension reforms proposed by French President Emmanuel Macron could be extended by rail and bus employees as well. So what is the proposed pension reform? Let's break it down for you. The French president's new plan aims to reward employees on a day-to-day basis. The points earned every day will be later transferred into future pension benefits. The official retirement age has been raised in the last decade from 60 to 62. Meanwhile, those retiring before 64 would receive a lower pension. For instance, if someone retiring at 63 would receive 5% less, the cost of France's current system in terms of pension spending as a percentage of GDP is among the highest in the world at 14%, whereas UK is spending less than half of that.